aqua mean if I see it on a label?
Yeah, so the way that we have to label skincare products is we have to describe ingredients in particular terms, which is an international convention, and more or less they're Latin words that describe the ingredient. So aqua is actually water, and what you'll find with many cosmetics and skincare products, hair care products, care products generally, is that aqua is the first ingredient. So aqua is water, and if it's the first ingredient, it is the ingredient in greater concentration than anything else. So if you pick up a label and you read it, and aqua is the first ingredient, most of the stuff in that packet, that tube or that bottle is water. And there are ways using surfactants and other additives to make water look like cream. So if you add chemicals to the water and do a bit of stirring up and messing about, the water itself can then look like a cream, but it's not, it's mostly water.
Does it have a purpose, or is it just a filler ingredient?
So does it have a purpose? That is really, it's really interesting. So water is obviously good, and water hydrates, and hydration is good. It could be argued, however, that the best way for the body to take on water is to drink it, rather than rub it on your skin. Or you know, rub it on your hair. So probably on balance, I would say that water is a very good, cheap way of making a product look like a large volume of product when in fact it's a large volume of water. And the other thing actually that's important about water is that it is an ideal breeding ground for microbes, for bacteria and fungi and yeasts and other things that you don't really want in a cosmetic product. We need to keep cosmetic products very pure and clean to make sure that they are good for us. So water in a product means it's an ideal breeding ground for all these microbes, and therefore you need to add an awful lot of preservatives to kill all those microbes if you've got water present. You know, there is a bit of a downside as well. So I would say it is a filler, it's a cheap ingredient, making things look bigger that are in fact fairly small in terms of active, you know, good ingredients. And it's also a good breeding ground for nasties.
Do we use water in our products?
We don't, no.
Why is that?
No.
And if we don't use water, what do we use instead?
So we don't use water in our products, and the main reason we don't use water in our products is because one of our commitments is to minimise the use of preservatives. And as I said before, if you have water in your product, you need to have preservatives in your product to stop the product growing microbes, bacteria, etc. We don't want to use preservatives in heavy preservatives, things like parabens, which there's been a lot of documentation about potentially adverse effects of parabens. So we don't use water. So the things we would use in our products are just the active ingredients. So it would be things like shea butter, things like coconut oil, things like castor oil, things like aloe vera extracts, things like essential oils. So things that aren't water.
Are there any ingredients on mainstream skincare lists that people should be wary of, aware of, avoid? I know things can come in Latin names, but is there anything in particular that jumps out to you that people should look at and actively avoid?
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff out there. I mean, they can be put in categories.
Okay.
So the things that tend to cause allergic reactions and bad reactions would fall into categories. So one of those categories would be things like surfactants. So things like detergents, which do tend to cause a lot of allergic reactions. They do tend to dry things out. And there are loads of names for surfactants. You know, the ones we hear about are SLS, SLES. There's another one called isothianate. So there's loads of names for these surfactants, but in effect they are detergents, and they're pretty strong detergents. They're the things that make, in many cases, water look like cream, but they really are to be avoided if you have any sort of skin sensitivity. They cause dryness in the skin, dryness in hair. They strip, you know, natural oils away from the skin. If you think about a detergent, it's fairly logical. You'd use a fairy liquid, a detergent, on your greasy plates. It's the same principle. So surfactants, detergents, I'd say they are something to be wary of. Another thing to be wary of is the parabens group of chemicals and heavy-duty preservatives of that type. So there has been a lot of documentation over many years about the potentially disruptive qualities for the endocrine system of those types of preservative, and we talked about, you know, how they will often be there in parity with water, aqua, but preservatives are something to be, you know, to think about when you're looking at ingredients labels. There are words like parfum. So parfum is an all-embracing term that in effect covers around 3,000 or 4,000 different chemicals which could be part of a parfum. Parfum would be artificial fragrance, if you like. So it is a group of perfumey type chemicals that come together to be an artificial fragrance. And often within that unnamed group of chemicals, there will be things that trigger allergic reactions. So there is an organisation called Allergy UK, and they mention these things like surfactants, preservatives, parfum as the things generally which tend to trigger allergic reactions. So parfum, one to be careful about. Colours, again, lots of artificial colours that people may wish to avoid. Again, there's been research into those, and some of the research has indicated that some colours are not great for us, and they will tend to be mentioned on ingredient labels with numbers like C and then a number, or CI and then a number. So you'll be able to pick those up. Yeah. So those would be the main categories, I'd say.
Do we include any of those in our products?
We have very infrequently, we have chosen to use an artificial parfum rather than a natural essential oil. That is only present, I think, in 2 of our products, and it is alongside essential oils. So it's very, very small concentrations, but you will find the word parfum on 2 of our products. We use preservatives, but the preservatives we use are 3 preservatives, a blend of 3 preservatives, all of which are derived from plants. So the only preservatives we use are salicylic acid, which is from Salix, the willow. They are sorbic acid, which is from Sorbus, the rowan tree, and also benzyl alcohol, which is found in nature. It's a sweet smelling thing. It makes flowers smell of flowers and very ripe fruit smell of very ripe fruit. So those are the only 3 we would tend to use. They're naturally derived preservatives, and those are what we would use. So they don't really fall under the category of things to avoid. You know, what else? We don't use colours at all in our own products. Some of the people for whom we make products wish us to use colours, and we try wherever we possibly can to steer them towards natural colours. You know, beetroot extract and those sorts of things, but we don't use any at all in our own products. There's another thing as well called titanium oxide, titanium dioxide, which is something that makes things white. So you'll often find that in soaps. We don't use any of that. Our soaps are a sort of creamy colour because we don't really want to be adding synthetic chemicals to them to make them white.
Perfect. Thank you very much.